Finally, the internet is going to get a proper comparison between two 60-quart coolers. This one's the Yeti Roadie, equipped with a handle and little spinning wheels. And this one's the Blue Cooler, also equipped with a handle and little spinning wheels. Anyway, both of these are high-end premium molded cooler options, and today what we want to find out is which one of these coolers is better and which one you should buy yourself. Now, before I dive into the product review, this is a no BS channel. We do not get paid for these reviews and they are not sponsored. That means we bought both of these coolers with our own money. We do that so you can get an unbiased, honest review as to which one you should buy yourself. So if you want more honest product reviews, please hit that like and subscribe button as we produce content weekly. Now, Yeti, of course, needs no introduction. They have established themselves as the king of coolers. Basically, they found a niche in the roto-molded cooler option and found that if they charge $1,000, they can get most people to buy a product that may or may not be subpar to what you're actually spending. And then in comes Blue Cooler, a sort of newer competitor to the game, especially in terms of competing with the Yeti. But ultimately, like most competitors to Yeti, they've tried to inch their prices just a little bit lower so you may be tempted to buy their product instead of Yeti's. But price isn't everything. Form, function, and real-time experiences are what matters, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to complete 3 tests. One is the volume test. We're going to figure out which one can hold more. They're both advertised as 60-quart coolers, but they're slightly different shapes. The Yeti being a little bit taller, the Blue Cooler being a little bit wider. And then what we're going to do is talk about the practical features and experience with using both of these coolers. And then last, we're going to do the ice retention test, where I'm going to get a couple of bags of ice, pop them in, let them sit over the course of a few days, and see which one lasts longer. Now, the Blue Cooler advertises 10 days of ice retention, and the Yeti advertises somewhere between 6 and 7 days of ice retention. But we know for a fact that those numbers really only exist if pigs fly. And at the end of the day, every manufacturer, cooler manufacturer, lies about their ice retention times. Now, to be fair to Yeti, if you take a look at their products compared to others, they do happen to have, even though they have a slightly thinner structure, they have a slightly superior material where they do happen to actually last longer than most of their competitors. But with the bold claims of 10 days from Blue Cooler, we want to find out if this thing can outlast Yeti. First test we're going to do is the volume test. Ironically, we're going to take a Yeti bucket and fill up the Blue Cooler and the Yeti cooler with as many buckets as possible until they're, well, at the top. And we're going to see how many buckets it takes. And then, hopefully they should be the same because, that's what they advertise. That's how much water is left in the bucket. Just like maybe about an inch. And then I filled it to the brim, which actually is not a fair test because the right here, the lip is where the gasket goes into. So technically, you should be filling it up to about there, but that's all right. All right, time to dump in bucket number 1 into the Blue Cooler. Now, while the bucket is filling up, there is something I do want to talk about with the Blue Cooler versus the Yeti. You'll notice that on the lid of the Yeti here, there's sort of like a lip that, as I've pointed out with the water test, is going to require that you don't fill it up too much past that this lip right there. Well, on the Blue Cooler, while you have one, it's certainly a lot less prominent. So it's a little bit shallower right here. So really the only thing that you have to worry about is that this rubber gasket actually meets the seal, which again, so long as these buckles close, I don't think that you're gonna have a problem with that. All right, and third and final bucket incoming here. I'm gonna try to be a little careful with this. Gonna fill this all the way to the top like I did the Yeti. All right, so I closed the lid and nothing spilled out. I mean, as you can see, the water is still basically at the top other than where I kind of jostled it a little bit. That said, though, our bucket is not nearly as empty as it was on the Yeti. So with that in mind, the Yeti wins in terms of the absolute volume that you're going to be putting on this thing. Hey everyone, quick interjection before we dive into the functionality test. I wanted to clarify the results of the volume test between the two coolers. You'll notice at the end of the test, the bucket, after dumping it into the Blue Cooler, had more water in it. But if you account for the fact that the Yeti has a more prominent lip that goes into the internal storage, The differences in volume between the two coolers are almost negligible. And in fact, in real world application, I doubt that you would have any difference between the two at all. So while the Yeti does in fact have maybe just a smidge more volume in it internally, you are not going to have any problem packing your drinks, lunch, dinner, and whatever else you want to bring to the beach on your weekend trip, etc. and so forth. So bottom line is real world application. Both coolers are going to be just about identical. Let's talk features between the Yeti Roadie and the Blue Cooler. So basically both coolers have these tie down latch systems. Blue Cooler's got the same. I really love that because it makes opening and closing both coolers really, really simple and easy. The Yeti Tundra series has these like rubber handle things that you kind of gotta like lash down on a little notch, and that does kind of get a little bit annoying. So they did a really, really good design job on both of these coolers for that. Both coolers have the ability to lock them with like a standard, you know, like master lock kind of thing. However, Yeti gives you like a little coupon on the inside to redeem it on their online store, and then they send you the kit to install yourself, whereas Blue Cooler has it installed from the factory. The Blue Cooler also has a built-in bottle opener right here, so you can kind of feel down here, there's an area where you could like take your bottles and pop it open. I love that. In the case of the Yeti, I basically just had to lash down a little bottle opener on the sort of handle area. I don't know why Yeti doesn't just include that on like all of their units, but they don't. All right, next up, let's talk handles on these coolers. The Yeti has both the wheels and the handle on the back of the cooler, whereas on the Blue Cooler, it's on the sides, and in fact, it's on the opposing sides. Having both on the back allows the cooler to balance itself a little bit easier. It allows for a little bit better maneuverability. Now, in general, the Blue Cooler doesn't have a very hard time maneuvering around, and in fact, as in a real-world experience, it's pretty much fine. But with that said, having both on the back, the way Yeti designed it, is a better design, except where the Yeti is almost a total failure is with its handle. Now, I am not pushing the button on here right now, and you'll see that the left side has not locked. And this is now the third telescoping handle that Yeti has had to send me, and it's broken again. There we go. You will either have trouble with it unlocking altogether, where you will not be able to get it up from this position, kind of like now, there we go, like now, or once it's locked in the top position, you won't be able to get it down. There we go. Or what will happen is it just won't lock at all. For a $450 cooler, the handle design on the Yeti Roadie is a 100% disaster. Basically, we brought it to the beach, and in one day, it stopped working. Now, to Yeti's credit, they did send us a replacement for free. Took a couple of days. Obnoxiously, this handle, tiny little box, came packaged in a box almost as big as the Yeti cooler. Yeti has a thing with that. Whenever they ship you like small items, they package it like they're sending you a nuclear bomb. And I really hate that. It's very wasteful, and I don't appreciate it. Blue Cooler, on the other hand, does not have some obnoxious telescoping handle. The handle is built into the side. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, that's awesome because that's a simpler design. It has nothing to break. It's superior. However, when the Blue Cooler is empty, and right now it has water in it, so it's totally filled up and heavy. When the Blue Cooler is empty, if you are a tall person and walking with it, what will inevitably happen is the handle will act like a cantilever, and the cooler will basically fall on its side. That gets really old, really annoying, really fast. And I haven't found a way to prevent that from happening, but again, obviously once it's weighed down and it has stuff in it, that's not really going to be a problem. With that said, I wish that some company could design just a perfect wheeled handled system, and it doesn't seem to exist. If Yeti could perfect the handle on here to not break just when you sneeze at it, I'd say the Yeti is the better option, but it just isn't. The Blue Cooler's simpler design will last forever, it won't break, and honestly, I think that's probably the better way to go. And that is also a little bit clumsy, I mean, right? It just sort of plops down. Not as elegant as the Yeti is. So anyway, you either take unreliability or you take like a little less graceful. And plus I think most people will take the slightly less graceful. Now, one nice perk about both of these coolers is they fit underneath the tonneau cover of a Ford F-150. However, in the Yeti's case, just barely. So if you have a shallow truck bed such as a Cybertruck or a Tacoma, you may not be able to fit the Yeti underneath your tonneau cover, but the blue cooler should probably work out just fine. That said, if you've got a real truck, the Yeti will do okay. Last feature to discuss in terms of differences between these two coolers is the gasket. Now, both of these coolers are filled with water because of our volume test. You will notice, let me lock this down for a fair comparison, that the Yeti is leaking. You will notice that the blue cooler is not. The blue cooler has a valve built in. The Yeti doesn't. And I like the simplicity of not needing a valve. However, if water can get out of the cooler, that means hot air or cold air can get in. The same cannot be said about the blue cooler. The reason why Yeti creates a non-valved design is because they don't want you, if you're using dry ice, they don't want you to have to like depressurize it before closing and reopening the cooler. But the point is that the blue cooler's design seals much better than the Yeti's. Will that impact ice retention? Let's find out. All right, here we are at 7-Eleven, and we are going to buy 6 bags of ice to put into both coolers. The goal is to put 3 bags of ice in each cooler and see which one lasts longer. Let's go test some ice. Excellent. All else being equal, each cooler has 30 pounds of ice. I'm going to stash them in my garage, which is roughly about 85 degrees Fahrenheit on average. I'm going to check them once in the morning and once at night, measure them, and then at the end we're going to see which one is best.
Ice is getting scant. Well, there it is. There's the answer. There is no more ice left in the Yeti, period. Oh, wow. Don't even need to measure it. 53.7. But let's open the blue cooler back up here. And there is still, in fact, ice in there. We'll see if it lasts 10 days. I can pretty much guarantee that it won't. But nevertheless, the blue cooler wins. Actually, by a frankly pretty impressive margin. All right, so it's been now a few days. I'm pretty sure the ice has melted out of both of them. I've already determined that the Yeti lost the ice challenge. So 61.1 degrees in here. 71.4. Martini Racing finish. Bottom line is, if you want something that has best-in-class ice retention, probably is going to be a little bit more reliable since you don't have the mechanical handle, and ultimately has a slightly better design overall, you will want to go with the blue cooler. Now, I will admit that there is something alluring about the Yeti. I don't really quite know what that is. Maybe it is just the brand name, but ultimately, if you want the best of the best, this one is it. And it also costs like 200 bucks less. So anyway, hope this video was helpful to those curious about their next cooler purchase. If you have any questions, reach out to us in the comments section. Please like and subscribe. We'll be back with another video really soon.